Well, hello. Here we are, Friday, the 10th of July. Trust everybody is well. Just have some dates here. I was just sort of thinking. In the description, I've got a couple of maybe four links that if you have a mind to, if you're interested, pretty informative. I think we have Dr. Bartlett down there regarding his treatment of the Wuhan waltz virus. We have an interesting article from Zero Hedge, and it's worth a read. You know, especially as you look stateside, particular if you look to London, or if you look England, or if you look at our bigger cities in Canada as well. A lot of these people who are doing what they're doing, maybe some well-meaning and some just anarchists, it's time, I think, that we stood up and said, look, enough is enough. Really. We're getting close. And the other two, there's one about the Avro Arrow. So this one is sort of like, I suppose we should call this one Rumours, Folklore, and perhaps some truth. Because as you look at Canada, some people think we don't have a history. I grew up in the prairies, Manitoba, Saskatchewan. And Manitoba joined the Confederation, what was becoming Canada, in 1870. And Saskatchewan joined in 1905. Now, an interesting thing, a lot of people figure, a lot of the bleeding hearts out there marching figure that the land was just taken from people. And it wasn't taken. There were some battles fought. If people would bother to sort of check out some history from all angles, the history from the Métis side, from the Cree side, to all sides. Check it out. There were two major battles. There was the Red River Rebellion in 1869, and that was led by Louis Riel, and these battles really started to cause a rift between the French and English in Canada. It's still, to a point, still there today. But you got to go back in time. Country was just starting. The country wasn't all formed yet, and people with vision were sort of expanding the country. After the Red River Rebellion, Riel, I think, fled down into the States. And around 1885, he came back to lead the Northwest Rebellion. And these are major battles. At the time, there was a rebellion against this new forming Canada. People were killed, both sides. People executed on both sides. Riel executed a guy by the name of Scott, firing squad. He hadn't done anything at that time that would warrant a death penalty, but Riel was sort of figured he was sent by God, sort of thing. He was one of those type of people. Not that there's anything wrong with that. A lot of people figure they're sent by God, but some people thought he was a bit unstable, and I don't think he was mentally unstable. I think he just was passionate about what he wanted to do. And he was actually charged with treason and hung as a traitor. And interesting, after the thought with that, we do have statues to Louis Riel in Manitoba and Ontario. Check them out. Those of you who are destroying statues. So the land just wasn't taken. The land was fought over. There was a war fought, and the victors got the land. And it's like any war in Europe or anywhere else. That's what happens. And do you go back a century and a half and say, no, that we want that war undone and give us all that back? And I say that one of my best friends growing up was a Cree and some Métis as well. And as kids playing, we sort of reenacted that, those battles. See, we knew our history. We were taught history back then. And there was a white guy, I think his name was Batosh, but I'm not sure, who actually was fighting with Riel. So in some of those games we played, I was the white guy, so to say. It was different back then. We weren't politically correct. We loved one another and understood one another. We didn't suffer fools, but we could laugh at ourselves and we had jokes about things. And there was nothing racist or nothing nasty intended about it. We're all good friends. And yeah, it was sort of interesting. So that's a little bit about the prairies. And you can know there's a lot of good books written on it. It's volumes that one can go study that if one really wants to get all of the details. And like any war, any battle, any rebellion, it wasn't pretty. But that's what happened. And like I say, eventually the two provinces joined, Manitoba and Saskatchewan joined Canada. And at the same time, Saskatchewan joined Alberta. I think Alberta joined as well. That would be in 1905. So what else was I going to talk about today? So some rumors and some folklore. You know, we look at our Prime Minister today and we sort of think he's sort of foolish sometimes, and perhaps he is. We've got to laugh at ourselves, our own leaders. But I suppose at the same time we have to think that our political leaders, our spiritual leaders, our heroes, whether they be entertainment heroes or sports heroes, are human beings, not perfect. And like all of us, they have their warts and have done things maybe they wish they wouldn't have, or some of them are a bit psychopathic and would have done more if they would have lived longer than they could have. One of our, I think our 10th Prime Minister, William Lyon Mackenzie King, is an interesting man. Some writers and historians think they rank him as the most important Prime Minister in Canada's history. Some rank John A. Macdonald ahead of him, but there's always, controversy. But as a kid, there was sort of a jingle we all had. William Lyon Mackenzie King sat in the middle and played with string, and he loved his mother like anything. William Lyon Mackenzie King. Because he did, he was very close to his mother. I don't think he ever married. He was single. And he was sort of a spiritualist at that time. And, after his mother died, the story is, whether this is rumor or for sure, you can read lots of literature on this so you can follow it through. He used to communicate with his mother through like seances and that sort of thing. And other dead friends. He talked to dead friends. Remember, this is a guy leading the country. And Frank is our number one Prime Minister by some people. And I think he had a dog, small dog, and he thought it was his mother reincarnated. No, that's stories you hear, so you have to verify that by getting into the literature, and it's there. Another interesting thing with William Lyon Mackenzie King, he sort of liked Hitler at the beginning. He thought Hitler was a very spiritual man. Actually went over and met Hitler and was quite taken with him, and thought at the end of the day Hitler could rise like a Joan of Arc of Germany sort of thing. This is documented. I think King told Britain that Canada wouldn't go into the Second World War unless England was directly attacked. If they were just doing their thing in Europe, King wasn't interested in getting involved. And again, like the British king who sort of gave up the throne for Simpson, who had a fondness for Hitler. So did Mackenzie King. And of course you've got to go back to that time and really dig to see why he would have thought that way. Because Hitler was trying to save the German people at that particular time. It was before all the goofiness that really came on, the extermination camps and all the slaughter. And of course, as you research that, you're going to see there was that kind of crap happen from both sides. It wasn't pretty. War is not pretty. It's not something you want to get involved in. So that's William Lyon Mackenzie King, our 10th Prime Minister. Our 13th Prime Minister is John F. Diefenbaker. And I think he won a Conservative majority after like 27 years or something of Liberal rule, so he had broke through. And but what I remember him for, and there's links to this, the Avro Arrow. That was just before the Korean War, and Canadians with a lot of British designers and help had developed the Avro Arrow, a fighter plane. It was quite spectacular for its day. And it's interesting because I've talked to some Air Force, high up or more high up in the Air Force, fighter pilots and what have you, who were there at the time, had actually seen the planes. And apparently there was a rift between one of the manufacturers and Diefenbaker. Diefenbaker was a teetotaler, so they say, never drank. And of course, one of the partners in the company, Avro Arrow, liked his drink and could get boisterous at times, so they say. And nobody knows the real reason, although the Air Force officer that I spoke to, it's interesting, I met him in we own a coffee shop, and when we first started, he came in as one of my first customers, and he used to come in regularly. He lived in Comox at the time. And he was gone on after the Air Force to become an engineer and was in charge of supervising construction of pulp mills and that sort of thing. But his story was that Diefenbaker got so mad at the Air Force and this builder that he ordered all of the planes destroyed. And he didn't want any piece remaining that would fit through a 12 by 12 slot, or 12-inch slot. And the video the video links go into that. And as you look back at it now, most people would call it a pretty stupid, stubborn, childish thing to do. Because not only did they destroy everything, they sold it all for scrap. And they wanted all of the prints and all the video movies, everything of that plane destroyed, so as if it never existed. And the Air Force fellow sort of was off in a tangent, this ex-officer, and thought maybe it was more than just a rift between the manufacturer and Diefenbaker, but it might have been a deal he had made with the Americans. Their shadow society, even back then, was sort of starting, and that they would help him with the next election, maybe if he got rid of this plane, because it was in great competition with what the Yanks were doing. It was this company had the first jet passenger plane and delivered the first jet mail to the States. And Howard Hughes had that plane as a personal bit of transportation for a while. So that's Diefenbaker. And there's a hell of a lot more about Diefenbaker than he's a hero in Saskatchewan. He was born in Ontario, but family moved to Saskatchewan. That's where he grew up. Went to University of Saskatchewan. And as a kid, I was sort of enamored with that whole fact that a guy from Saskatchewan could become Prime Minister. And only later I found out what he had done with his arrow, and that sort of really shot my my eulogies of Diefenbaker down. Even though he was from Saskatchewan, I thought he was a stupid ass. And after talking to the Air Force officer, that confirmed that. It was another thing I remember about Diefenbaker is I grew up on a farm, and they had bad crop failures, just weather, hail and frost and early snow and all the crap you could imagine. So the federal government had sort of a care package for Saskatchewan or the prairie farmers, and it was called Quick. I think it was called Quick. It was like Spam. It was tinned meat, and I don't eat that to this day because for a while growing up we had Spam every which way you could think. Cold on sandwiches, fried, boiled, whatever else my mother could come up with doing that. So I don't eat that sort of stuff today, and don't have an affinity for mystery meat. Interesting little sideline. So another Prime Minister is, of course, so I talked about Mackenzie King. He was the 10th. Diefenbaker was the 13th. After the Avro Arrow was destroyed, he never got back into power. He sort of did himself in. But he was a member of Parliament, but he sort of actually lost the leadership to Joe Clark. And yeah, that's going back a ways. And of course, then we have Pierre Trudeau, our current Prime Minister's father. And in his early days, he used to ride around on a motorcycle, so they say, called himself citizen of the world. He was into this New World Order way back then. Even wore a swastika on his helmet or on his jacket, much like our friend Prince Harry did when he went to a party. And I wasn't there to see that, but that's the rumors you hear about Pierre Trudeau. And another Prime Minister that I sort of liked off and on, he actually got me interested in voting through the FLQ crisis, the hostage taking in Quebec. And after he brought in the War Measures Act, I remember him once on stage doing a speech, and they were throwing stuff. Security people were sort of ducking, and he was standing right up there. And as a young person, I thought, well, there's a guy you could follow. He's not running away from anything. And Trudeau was like that. He wasn't apologetic like his son. He wasn't kneeling down, apologizing, doing goof shit. I mean, he'd give people the finger, and I remember one comment he made to people. The post office was on strike, and everybody was haranguing. And I remember a comment he made. What do you expect to be paid for putting envelopes in slots? And he's sort of cocky son of a gun. But there was something about him that was cool. It was through him that women be able to get a mortgage on their own. You can research that. That's there. A lot of people don't know that, but Trudeau sort of nailed that one down. I think they were working on it before, but he finally was the guy that nailed it down. He drove a neat sports car. I think his son Justin still has it today. And would swear in Parliament. And when they would call him on it, he said, I don't know, I think I might have muddled, fuddled, duddled or something. And that was a big thing way back in his time. So there we have it. A bit of rumor, a bit of folklore, and some truth in Canada. And but look at the Hedge report, or the article from the Hedge report, because that's where we're heading, and we're so close to falling into that. So close to falling into that. And it's basically all the bleeding hearts who are using the right word, using the right pronoun, all that sort of shit that really has got us to where we are. And like I say, I've given you a little bit of history, fact, truth, and rumor, but I mean, sometimes history isn't all pretty. But you look at the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the good always seems, for a country that survives, the good comes through. When you look at the States or you look at Canada, and there's been a hell of a lot more good than bad. So for all you clowns out there who are ripping down statues, wanting to defund police, do all kinds of crazy stuff, hey, check your history. Be proud of the damn country you're in, because all of its warts and foibles, it's allowing you to go do goofy stuff, do all this protesting and vandalism and all the crap you do. You know, if we get what you want us to have, you won't be able to do that anymore. Think about that. But anyway, that's it for now. Take care. Bye for now. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you tomorrow.